some great insights there from our first panel of the day. Really could just keep talking about that all afternoon. It's so interesting. Per, any reflections from you on the future of work off the back of that?
Yeah, it's truly new beginnings for all of us, as we have heard. A turning point for the whole society. And perhaps the mega trend of urbanization has, if not come to a halt, but will take another turn that we thought in the past.
We'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on now, and our next big focus is disruption. Now, whether you're an architect, an engineer, or a contractor, there is a growing need for efficient digital tools and software tools to help us adapt to all these challenges of the new normal that we've been talking about. And our next speaker is going to be delving a bit deeper into this topic. She is Director of Construction Thought Leadership and Customer Marketing for Autodesk, which many of you will know is a leader in 3D design, engineering, and entertainment software. Allison Scott.
I wish that I could be there with you all in person today, but as you can see, like many of you, my home office is my new stage, and I have traded in my high heels for comfortable slippers. Is this disruptive to what I used to think was my normal way of working? Sure, but all of our lives have been disrupted in many different ways this past year. I actually like to look at disruption as opportunity, a way to accelerate change that in many instances is necessary for us to do better, to achieve what's really possible. So is disruption reshaping our industry? The simple answer is yes. Now, the easy and most recent catalyst is to point to the pandemic as the driving force of disruption and digital transformation in AEC. But you know as well as I do how essential digital tools have become in the wake of lockdowns, of remote working, and of social distancing on the job site. The ability to collaborate remotely is what's kept the industry alive and kept projects going forward. But we know that's not the case for everyone, and the struggle to survive does continue for many firms. So regardless of how you've weathered the past year, the pandemic has and will continue to fundamentally reshape how we do business. We are now on a trajectory that the International Data Corporation estimates will accelerate cloud adoption by 3 to 5 years. So yes, it's true. We are at an amazing inflection point in the world and in construction. If we've learned nothing else in the past year, it's that the power and the resilience and the drive of people combined with technology and will continue to transform the industry towards the new possible. But the answer to this question of disruption is more nuanced than the impact of the pandemic alone. The truth is, disruption has been reshaping the industry for more than a decade. So let's go back to the global recession of the late 2000s, which left a lot of change in its wake. Many businesses just barely squeaked by out of survival, or they shuttered. But then there were those who also saw the downturn as an opportunity. They invested in new technology, in new processes. They spent resources on training and upskilling their teams. And BIM, or Building Information Modeling, was in its infancy at the start of the recession. But by the end of it, BIM implementation across AEC had soared from 28% to 70%. Also, towards the end of the recession, the iPad came along, another disruptor, granting hands-on access to information. I mean, quite literally hands-on to those finally on the project site. The iPad catapulted an explosion of technology for construction, with new apps linking the office and the field like never before. And on the other side of the global recession, people used technology to innovate, and those innovators thrived. Now, as this evolution was happening, at the same time, our collective conscience about the environment was also growing. We began to witness the full scope and threat of climate change and how the global industry started to drive more seriously towards sustainability. And now there is consensus that collectively we need to act with more urgency. And I think you'll agree that in many regards, the Nordics are leading the charge. From increasingly volatile storms that require more resilient buildings and infrastructure, to new expectations and regulations for cleaner, greener environments. Climate change is a disruptor in of itself, driving us towards more sustainable ways to build and to live. So this mini history of disruption brings us to today, and the disruptors that have been incrementally making change across our industry, until the pandemic made it even more immediate. One of the interesting outcomes that we've seen as a result of disruption is the concept of convergence, which is the collision of processes and tools across industries. The blurring of lines between disciplines that help unlock exponential growth. Convergence happens through mass digitization and the unimpeded flow of data. And digital transformation of the industry to support this is no longer optional. It is necessary to stay relevant today and in the future. And don't worry, we're going to get into this more. So in the meantime, take a listen to what industry leaders are saying about where AEC is headed with digital transformation.
Moving in the digital era is complex.
It is not about just technology implementation. We need to make the people also understand the use of the technology itself. So this is not a job for one person. It is a job for everyone.
The technology is never the issue, or at least it shouldn't be. It's always going to be an aspect of politics or people or some form of communication which you have to deal with.
We saw a need from our clients that they needed more speed to market, a more efficient one model approach. The pandemic's really driven us to have to work better.
We use digitalization to improve our business process. I think digitalization is a way of do things differently.
There was a handful of things which were well overdue for transformation, and this gave us a great opportunity to do it properly.
Our strategy when it comes to digital is really to consider data as a new type of asset, because we think that in the future, everything we do, every decision we make should be data-driven. Finding the right ecosystem partners is key to be successful in this digital transformation. In many cases, we have multiple users working in different pieces of the same model at the same time, and that's huge.
And that enabled us to unlock value in the project, maintain momentum, and also close out issues very quickly. It really has been a game changer for us.
One of the major benefits we've got is having the BIM models being the central source of truth for everybody. We've been able to work without lag or delay through a lot of challenging circumstances.
It's imperative that companies embrace change, embrace moving into technology. That allows us to work together, engaging different people with their expertise around the globe.
Geographically dispersed teams working from home and fast-tracking the migration from paper-based to data-based deliverables will become the norm.
Digital transformation is really the future, and I think the future is already here now. The speed to market that it brings is really, I think, what's going to be required for folks to be competitive in the future.
If you know how to leverage the technology, we can do whatever we want. And with the right people, using the right tools at the right time, we can do amazing things.
I couldn't agree more with this statement. The future is here now. Those who embrace transformation, seeing opportunity embedded in these challenges, will come out ahead, just like those who evolved during the global recession. The hardest part might be actually fully envisioning where that change means for you. What does the change mean for you and your business? So let me walk you through 3 things. How processes, because of disruption, are becoming more connected, leading to greater opportunities for convergence across the built environment. 2, how these changes can further critical industry goals around safety, efficiency, and sustainability. And 3rd, some practical ways for you to think about where you and your company are today and how you can use this disruption to take the next steps in your digital journey. Now let's start with convergence and the new possible for those who are embracing it. The dictionary defines convergence as the process of moving together from different directions and meeting, or the process of becoming very similar or the same. To illustrate how convergence plays out in business, let's look at something that we can all relate to, the smartphone. The smartphone converged hardware, software, business models, and entire industries into one device. These previously siloed industries like computing and telecom, internet search, social, and consumer electronics like photographs and your music player converged into one, creating a powerful new pocket-sized platform. The smartphone became a new thing in its own right, and this is a perfect example of convergence causing disruption for some players while creating tremendous opportunity for others. This convergence of the smartphone cost standard cell phone makers their market dominance in just 4 years, while Apple, on the other hand, created an entirely new multi-billion-dollar market. Now, everywhere we look, technologies, industries, and processes are converging, creating considerable disruption or ripple effects in the process. So let's get to the heart of it for you and the built environment, and how convergence is reshaping processes from design to build to operate, while also producing new opportunities. So in architecture and infrastructure, global tech companies like Google and Tencent have discovered that software-driven and software-enabled cities are a new market sector. Smart cities use IoT sensors and other technology to connect every city layer, from the air to the street to the underground. And previously disparate systems and processes and infrastructure are converging into a single new system that promises to solve some of urbanization's biggest challenges. Imagine being alerted to traffic jams so that you can reroute yourself in minutes. Now imagine that you're in the back of an ambulance when that happens. Or waste management crews getting pinged when garbage is overflowing and garbage isn't being picked up, or where there's efficient delays in that process. The outcome here is that convergence can support cleaner, more sustainable, and more resilient cities. We're even seeing construction companies take advantage of things like this. So imagine a construction company becoming like a tech company. Don't have to look that far. Suffolk Construction in the US made bold moves to hire a Chief Data and Innovation Officer recently. This position oversees a new department dedicated to the collection and management of data. The investment is paying off in so many ways. Suffolk is making data-driven decisions to improve things like safety and quality. They're also using data to identify parts of their business that they don't need to focus on, while growing in the areas that have higher returns. But here's my favorite part. Suffolk has turned all of this effort into a completely new business line, with a new venture arm and an accelerator that invests in tech startups to drive efficiencies in the built environment. I mean, talk about unlocking the new possible. So, digitization is also forging other new combinations in construction by borrowing from manufacturing methods and skills to create more efficient construction processes. So from 3D printing of building components on a construction site to fabricating and assembling complex modules in a factory and then delivering them ready to install. This is industrialized construction, and it brings our industry the efficiency of an assembly line. This unlocks tremendous efficiencies for companies, helping to improve things like quality, safety, sustainability, and much more. But for many, it's also a business model shift. We're seeing architecture firms going downstream and adding fabrication shops to their business, and construction firms employing designers, or even dipping their toes into development, demonstrating that convergence is more than just new technology alone. At the core of all of this convergence is data. Data is now everywhere. We're bombarded by it, and the generation of data is exploding. It's in the rich 3D models that we create, the sensors in the buildings that we operate. It's in the images that we capture, the specs in the products that we source, the way that we enter data into quality and safety management and project management tools, so on and so on and so on. So let me be very specific about how all of this data is coming together and made more usable for AEC. It's through BIM. BIM is the foundation of digital transformation in our industry. It's not just a visual representation of an asset. It is a process that integrates the complex and complete asset lifecycle on a unified and open cloud platform. It's the thread linking the models from the design process to the quality checklists on the construction site to the digital twins and operations. The explosion of data being produced, plus the harnessing of BIM and the cloud to make sense of the data, all of this together is turbocharging convergence. And we're seeing some really powerful results, like more sustainable, if not regenerative buildings that give energy back to the environment, or emergency response hospitals being able to be built in days, not months, or an intelligent dam that gives early warning signs for repair. All of this is helping to address some of the most enduring pain points in our industry, finally. If we were together in person, like a normal year, at this point, I might ask you to raise your hand when I mention one of your biggest challenges. Is it delivering projects on time and on budget? Is it managing your waste in your processes or with your materials? Or is it meeting your sustainability goals? Here's what we know from a recent survey that we conducted with Frost & Sullivan. 70% of construction projects are over time and over budget. And 57% of that is equated to some type of waste, maybe extra waste with labor, extra waste with more materials, ultimately managing the process of rework. We also know that you all are focusing on sustainability more than ever before. In a separate survey of construction firms across Europe, 1 in 10 say that sustainability is a cornerstone of their business strategy. And businesses are planning to invest, on average, 900,000 euros in the next 5 years to become a more sustainable company. So when I see all of these numbers, I just think about the amazing opportunity. And I hope you do too, because everything that we're talking about here today can help you overcome the challenges and take advantage of the upsides. We don't have to look very far either for a great example of how the convergence of BIM, the cloud, and sustainability goals start to play out in real life. Let's go to Western Norway, where a 400 million euro highway expansion is underway. Over the course of this mega project, more than 100,000 documents will be generated, but none of them will ever need to be printed on paper. The lead consulting firm Norconsult is harnessing the cloud to aggregate, organize, and visualize every model and every document in a simple web browser. No special skills or software needed to access or review the content for those on the site, just an iPad and a hard hat. By bringing all of the data together in one simplified experience in the cloud, Norconsult is cutting time and costs, improving collaboration, supporting knowledge sharing and upskilling their workforce, and supporting efforts to reduce carbon emissions on the project by 20%, a quadruple win for digitization. I hope to see many other examples like this in the coming years. Our industry will continue on this trajectory of disruption and change, and maybe I'm a techno-optimist, but I like to focus on the good that comes out of this. What I want you to take away is that this notion of convergence isn't some far-fetched idea. It's happening today and we're all living it. And companies, large and small, are starting to see the benefits. So I'm sure by now, you might be asking yourself, where does this leave me and my company? All of this innovation and disruption and convergence talk can be very overwhelming. There is a tremendous amount of pressure on all of your companies from both external and internal forces. From the outside, there's the pandemic, the catalyst of all of this convergence of industries and disciplines and new ways of thinking, and seemingly an endless array of new tools and gadgets to choose from. Then you layer on the internal processes and pressures, right? Things like razor-thin profit margins, complicated and ever-changing contractual business models, and consistent challenges around attracting and retaining talent and skilled labor. You don't have the time or the money or the people to test out every shiny new object, and not everyone can hire a dedicated innovation staff or buy the next cutting-edge tool just to test it and see if it works. But the good news is you don't have to do all of that. How you go about change is hyper-personal to you and your business. You can get started by asking yourself a few key questions about where you are today and where you want to go. So, what are your biggest pain points? What are your business goals for the next 5, 10, 20 years? They may look different than that of your neighbor. Where are you on your digital journey? And where do you want to be? Get very clear on the types of outcomes that you want to achieve and the behaviors that you want to change. From there, only there, then you can start to shortlist the right technologies, the processes, the workflows that you want to focus on in the short, medium, and long term to achieve those very specific business outcomes to you. So, for example, what does it start to look like? Maybe one of the outcomes that you want to improve on is around your safety procedures. So you'll focus on getting rid of paper checklists and snag lists and use software and mobile devices and a new training program to capture data in one intuitive space. By digitizing that data and standardizing on how you collect and manage it, you can then actually look at safety compliance across crews and projects and build a holistic view of what you're doing well and what you need to improve on, truly being able to turn lagging indicators into leading indicators. That's from there, right, that then you can actually optimize, making data-driven choices about where to apply resources to improve your outcomes. Your safety record, quality, and bottom line will then be better for it. Digitize, standardize, and then optimize. That process holds true no matter where you go next on your digital journey or which outcomes you decide to focus on. But the real power of these processes and tools, just like we described with safety, is when it is connected to a platform enabled by a common data environment. A connected platform like the Autodesk Construction Cloud brings all of your data, your models into one place where the information is accurate, qualified, aggregated, and working from a single source of truth from start to finish. When you invest in a connected platform, you're able to digitize processes that were previously on paper and previously siloed, and then connect those processes across the lifecycle to other processes, giving you a better holistic point of view. Then you can standardize processes in the areas that you want to refer back and find those improvements. And from there, finally, you can then optimize. On a connected platform, you can easily test new technologies that pop up, integrating those that work while ditching those that don't. The connected platform will give you that comprehensive view of how these new tools do or do not fit into your ecosystem, and then how they serve your goals or they don't, giving you that flexibility to turn on and toggle off those investments that matter the most to you. Remember, the pandemic is a jump start for cloud adoption, and by at least 5 years. Companies are forecasted to invest $34 billion in new SaaS spend by 2026. The future is here now. Now, before I close, I want to go back to the disruption journey that is reshaping AEC and a critical lesson from the last major global event that jolted our industry. I mentioned before that those companies that embraced innovation through the global recession actually thrived. That's not just propaganda. In fact, the Harvard Business Review conducted a recent study of 3,500 companies and found that those who adopted digital tools saw their revenues grow 4 times larger during and after the downturn. The message here is indisputable. Embracing opportunity that comes from challenge leads to growth. Since then, disruption upon disruption has been layered onto our industry, an industry that notoriously is slow to change. Yet the pandemic made even the most technology-shy companies sit up and take notice of the transformation on the horizon, if not even adopt new tools themselves. I hope you've heard today some inspiring ways that convergence, digitization, disruption, innovation are all reshaping our industry for the better, as well as some practical ways for you to take those leaps forward. If you're ready to get started, I encourage you to reach out to your technology partner to ask what you can do next. Or if you don't have a technology partner yet, find one. See who can help you. Data and this process should not exist in a silo or an island. Neither should your digital transformation. We have the opportunity to do better, to embrace the reshaping of our industry, and to achieve the new possible together. Thank you.
Allison Scott from Autodesk. Some really interesting insights there, lots of hard data and examples, which we're going to delve into a little bit more in our next panel discussion, just picking up on a few of those themes that Allison mentioned. Thomas, can you introduce who we've got with us this time?
Yes, I'd love to. Yes, joining Allison, here I am. Joining Allison today, we have from London, UK, we have Anna Matic. She's a director of digital development, and she works for the architect and design company Scott Brownrigg. Very welcome to you. We also have from Sweden, I think from Linköping today, Bjälnes. He's a digital strategist at Tyréns, and Tyréns is one of the leading community development companies in Sweden. And also today here in the sofa, we welcome Jens Kolsrud, who's the CIO of Symetri.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Great to have you with us. Jens also did the COVID test we all had to do this morning, just in case anyone watching at home is thinking they're a bit close to each other. So I'm going to kick things off with a question for some of our panelists. Allison talked a lot about this. Disruption is very much driven by convergence. So how do you see that playing out in your current projects? We'll start with Anna.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's I mean, how long have we got?
10 minutes, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I'm going to try and be succinct. I think Allison had made some very good points in terms of how a major disruption like this literally just pushes you to do stuff that you've been thinking about for ages, and not necessarily even just to invest, but also to enable people and allow people to pick this up and actually just kind of run with it. I think we would have never had this many people working from home if it wasn't for obvious reasons. But it's not just that. I think the convergence that Allison was talking about is much bigger than just working from home stuff. We are genuinely starting to run projects with a view that we will be part of them all the way through to right to the end, and that actually we will be delivering not just the building, but actually delivering the so-called digital twin of the building, or at least being part of the kind of strategy of how that will be delivered. And I think that's a really important thing to realize. Actually, this push isn't really just a push in terms of how we're working, but actually how we're thinking about what we're delivering.
Thanks, Anna.
we're going to see that in a lot of projects.
Yeah, let's bring in Per, who's sort of nodding and listening. I can see. What do you want to add?
I also had the time problem. I totally agree to Allison. I almost hear myself. I really like your ideas. The thing is that just as a technology problem is all the way from end to end to end user, me as a visitor to the building, to just passing by or just doing some small stuff in that building, will also need that kind of information that we are creating now. So I want to stretch this digitalization to how we actually handle information in our companies, in our customers' companies, and to help them to structure the data from day one to forever, at least ever. But the problem we have now, I think, is that we need more thinking, how can we take care of this information to the real end users of data, the economists, the buyers, everyone, the cleaners. How can we actually produce and set up that platform it's going to be easy as the smartphone to use that type of data, connected to the SLAs, to the agreements, to all this kind of stuff. It's not just object information or asset information. It's how I use that asset or I serve that asset. So it's very, very complex picture, but the system is there, but it's not maybe the right systems. So that's a problem I see in how can we, otherwise it's just a big bunch of data, and where to put it? How can I handle it? How do I have the process for it?
A question
that's the thing.
Yeah, a question there, Per. You said it's not really there. Is it a technology that's lacking, or is it something else? Is it business models or services? What do you see? I know you work quite a lot with this.
I think it's actually all of it. The process is, how do we have the right education, right people or tools to do this, to understand the from above to the ground. So we need to have all types of smart people to actually work on this. And it's just our industry people. We need people from everywhere actually to make this work.
Cross-pollination.
Yeah. A question for you, Allison. We've been talking about the I in BIM for quite many years. This is nothing new. BIM has been a buzzword for 20 years now, I think. But why now? What is happening now? The technology has been there for quite a while, even if we've not been talking about your platforms. There have been other platforms, and the possibility to share data has been around for quite a while. Why now? What has changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, as an industry, we've been making significant progress very quickly towards really being able to capitalize and leverage this I in BIM that we've all been sort of dreaming of in a more robust way for many years. There's a couple of different reasons why, right? One of them is just the notion, of course, of just acceleration and exponential growth in technology itself. Computing power is getting more powerful. We've got more capabilities coming into the tools themselves. But there's also a shift happening in the culture of our industry. And I think we're beginning to see that through conferences like this, right? And the evolution of the increasing business models and the increased knowledge that data is actually part of the modern construction business these days. So all of those things combined actually are enabling this convergence, enabling this acceleration, this transformation to begin to happen, where we're starting to see the power that data actually plays in our day-to-day projects as well as our businesses. Because it's not just about making that individual project better, but it's about how do you make that individual project better as well as the next project better, the next project better, and the next project better, to get these exponential gains across the entire portfolio and ultimately across the entire business. One of the example that I gave around Suffolk Construction is a great one, right?
privately owned company in the US. They're growing rapidly. They've invested in a chief data officer who's also an innovation officer. They have an entire arm that's dedicated to technology transformation and are now adding to their business portfolio and investing in the next wave of technology that's going to be enabling them to take very big leaps ahead of somebody who might not be, who might not be making those investments. So
yeah, some really good points there, Allison. I just want to play a bit of devil's advocate really here as the journalist. It's all very well us in these kind of summits talking about these words, disruption, convergence, but how does that actually play out for the construction workers, the people on the factory floors, the cleaners, as Per was saying, how can we really communicate the importance of these concepts and make them a bit more tangible, because they are still quite abstract and theoretical, I think, to a lot of the workforce. And we'll go quickly to Allison, and I'll get Anna to pick up as well.
No problem. So the challenge here is translating those benefits, like you said, right? We have to make these tools accessible. We have to make them meaningful. We have to make them very personal. That's one of the very critical parts of digital transformation, because if you don't have that, you're not going to be successful. So one of those things to do is to start thinking about, how do you become a master storyteller? The other way to think about this is, how do you focus a portion of your effort on knowledge sharing? You have to talk about the wins. You have to say what's working. You also have to talk about the failures and say what's not working and what lessons are we learning along the way, so that people understand that progress is being made. And that we also identify areas that people across the entire business can participate in this journey with you, right? We don't want digital transformation happening in an ivory tower. We don't want it happening with just a handful of people. We want it happening across the entire business. So it has to be treated as such.
A quick response from Anna, and let's also bring in Jens as well, since he's made the effort to come right into the studio. So quick response from you first, Anna.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and also we should always think, how not to leave anyone behind. The challenge that people talk about often is, for example, small architectural practices who maybe only have 2 or 3 people, and where do they find the time to invest into very rapidly changing technologies? But I think we should also be thinking about people who are slightly on the margins, not because they're running small businesses, but because they're actually doing a very specific part of a job and maybe are not really part of the whole collaborative process. And I think the best way to think about that is that the larger companies are now doing much more collaboration with smaller specific sort of creators.
Thanks, Anna. Let's we are really short on time now, so I'm sorry to cut you off there. But Jens, just some final points from you on that.
All right, very short then, but I believe that what Allison said, I want to take it to a practical approach, and I think this, putting things into a context for the actual company and its employees and their supply chain and community is quite important. And I think that's where we sometimes lack, because there's so many things you can do when you talk about disruption. It's it can be quite big, and our job together with our clients is, of course, to try to put that into context and make it meaningful and understandable, and then we can apply technologies to really improve those working practices, and that's, I think, how we together can be better.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. It's time to move on and round off, and many thanks to you, Per, Anna, and of course Allison from Autodesk. It's been lovely to have you here, and thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Brilliant panel discussion, and sorry we didn't get round to answering your questions on that. I have been told that we will try and get back to those of you who have written in with specific questions as much as we can. So we've heard loads there about disruption. I've got Per with me again from Symetri. Anything you'd like to pick up on from those talks?
Yeah, I think my reflection on this is that the real pivot will come when we combine technologies. We have seen that before, and we will see that in the future as well. Anything from you, Maddie?
Yeah, I think for me, just some really interesting reflections on previous financial crises, what we've learned from them, and how this is different, and particularly just what on earth did we used to do without our tablets and our smartphones. I can't quite remember that far back. But we're coming up and having a break shortly, and you've got a bit of information about that for us, Per.
Yes, we're going to now have around 30 minutes break. During the break, you have a lot of things you can do here in the platform and in the session rooms, which can be seen on the left side of your screen on your web page. You find our partners and sponsor talks starting just in a few minutes. You can also go and have a chat with some of our partners in the exhibition booth, where many of them have their digital booths. In the expo area, you can also find co-workers for Symetri and have a chat with them. We have all our different business area there, and they are very excited to meet all of you, of course. And do not forget, we know that many of you are here to connect and network with others. So head over to the networking area. Here you can meet up with other participants in an exciting networking game. Just click on the button, adjust your camera, and you go be magically mixed with another participant for the event, for a one-to-one meeting. Very exciting indeed. You never know who you're going to meet. But don't forget don't go too deep into discussions. After 3 minutes, you'll be randomly mixed up with another person. So go mingle, and I'll see you here in about a half an hour.
Yeah, about half an hour's time we'll be back. Enjoy that speed networking and the rest of the stuff in the break. And yes, around 30 minutes time, that's about 3:45 Central European time. We'll see you then.